Hi everyone, and I want to welcome everyone at the FreightWaves audience to this fireside chat. I'm Richard Greening, I'm the Global Technical Director for DDC FPO. I'm also the co-chair of the Bill of Lading Working Group at BITTA. Walter?
Hey, hello Richard, I'm Walter Vandermeer and I'm the Customs Director for Regulatory and Compliance with Customs in UPS Europe. I represent UPS in trade associations like Business Europe, like the European Express Association and AmCham EU.
Fantastic. So we've been asked to talk today broadly about Brexit, which I'm sure we could talk about all day. I guess one of the reasons people have asked us to do this is obviously we've worked together now for over 3 years on a Brexit project, and whenever we do get the chance to talk, people always say that they should film it. So we'll see if we can live up to that expectation today or not. But I guess for the fact, realising that FreightWaves audience is a global audience, obviously here in the UK, Brexit's something I hear about multiple times a day, maybe in the US or in other parts of the world that maybe less so. So just, I guess, to give everyone some broad strokes, the United Kingdom had a referendum back in June 2016 to see if they still wanted to be part of the European Union. And the vote was to leave 52 to 48. And I think any time when there's a divide down the middle there, when it's so close, there's always going to be some people that are unhappy. And that was the starting place. Fast forward 3 years, 2 prime ministers later. And then on, I think it was January 23rd, the UK finally passed the EU withdrawal bill and made it law for the UK to leave the EU. And that came into effect on the 31st of January 2020. But it took until the 24th of December 2020 for us actually to draw up an agreement. And that was 7 days before everything had to come into effect. So I guess the starting point for you, Walter, is really, what did that mean for you and UPS in particular?
Thank you, Richard. Well, it's very important to understand the background. I mean, the UK left the EU. It left, in a way of speaking, the club. So that implies that the previous rules don't apply anymore. If you leave the club, you don't need to apply to the rules anymore, but you're doing business with the club, so you have to come up with new rules. And in order to prepare ourselves for that, UPS, from the first day after the referendum, started up different teams that looked at different aspects of the changed logistics. And that included looking at new hubs, changing the network, preparing IT systems, increasing bank guarantees, getting new customs authorizations. So that's been a very important work stream. And also, very importantly, at UPS, the most important item is having the right skilled people that are trained to cope with that incredible increase in workload. Mm-hmm. So that in a nutshell, what we did to prepare.
So I think we saw it across the board, because obviously you're one of many partners that we work with that are working on similar projects. But I think we joke with you, we're on version 3, and I think that's because there's all of the twists and turns in the journey. I mean, what's it like when something's so out of your control and you can anticipate everything or try to anticipate everything, but you don't know exactly where it's going to go. And I know we've been on that journey with you. So give us, I guess, some of the broad strokes over the last 3 years of those challenges.
Well, I think one of the most challenging items was the unpredictability on deployment dates and also on what the requirements would be. I mean, every economic operator needs to have predictability in order to do business, and that certainly was not there. And as you said, we had this nice Christmas present on the 24th of December with the new free trade agreement called the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. But normally, and I refer to other trade agreements like CETA or the EU-Japan trade agreement, you get a long time to prepare to change your setup. It's between 6, 12, even longer months to cope with it, and that was not the case into this situation. But basically, and more fundamentally, we need to realize what that entails, because you have a free trade agreement, and some people might think, okay, then everything is settled. No, not at all, because you still have customs requirements. You start with export documents. We have an NCTS document, which is a transit bonded document to move the goods. Then we do import declarations. We need to submit safety and security declarations. So with that, a lot of new requirements came, a lot of data involved, and we need to understand that our customers, the small, medium, and big companies, were not used to this anymore. We are talking, we're going back to 1992, when there were, for the last time, customs requirements between the UK and the EU, and at that time the Eurotunnel was just there. Now there's 9,000 trucks each day that pass that tunnel that need to go to customs requirements. Also, technology has changed completely, but also e-commerce in 1992 was not there, and it's now there more than ever. Even and that's another factor. With COVID-19, the e-commerce has increased significantly. So that is a bit the background of the challenges that we are facing.
No, I was going to say, I started in their career back in 1998, and I think I was told then it was a dying market and I should get out and do something different. And I say, little did people know that e-commerce was coming. I know you've been at UPS much longer than that. So are you coming up for 36 years now with UPS, or is that a trade secret I'm not supposed to reveal?
I started at UPS in 1994. I started my career in the port of Antwerp in 1984. And just to give you a hint, it is of course the last century. But when I started, the telex was there, and we were all delighted about that innovative technology of the fax that made this introduction. So that gives a bit the background. And in these 36 years, I've been seeing customs changing dramatically in terms of legislation, in terms of technology, in terms of tasks, because customs traditionally is a revenue collector. What people need to understand is that customs has grown into a very important actor in terms of safety and security, anti-terrorism, but also in protecting citizens, in checking sanitary, phytosanitary goods, and that adds to the complexity that we now facing with Brexit, because it's not just that we have to pay duties and taxes. No, customs needs to control a lot of more regulations on behalf of other government agencies.
I know it's a very good point to say when it comes to data. So going back to what you were just saying, so 98 for me was there was one server in the office, an NT4 server in the office with a 33 kilobyte modem, and people would be checking email 2-3 times a day. So there was very little data being created. Everything was physical paperwork, physical bundles, and people were used to it taking time to be delivered. And the billing functions and all of the other functions were things that just happened happened. Whereas we're now in this instant environment, right? I often use it as and say the Uber world. It's, people use Uber, or they did before the pandemic, and it just made something that everyone used to do that much easier. And it's making people ask the questions of, well, why isn't this easy, and why isn't this easy? And so we also have, you say your customers, where you touched on e-commerce, the expectation of an e-commerce customer must be extremely high on how they expect their freight to move.
Indeed, and also, and now let's make it a bit more complicated, because on the 1st of January 2021, not only the Brexit came into effect, but also the UK decided to come up with a complete new VAT legislation, where for goods below 135 GB pounds, and that's a lot of e-commerce, there's no requirement to pay the import VAT anymore, but you have, as a supplier or shipper, you have to charge your customer with the VAT. So that is maybe an improvement, because you don't need to go through that import declaration anymore. We still submit an import declaration, but we don't pay the VAT on behalf of the customer anymore. He pays a VAT included price to his supplier, but there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a need for more knowledge on that, because this is a complete new way of doing business, and that is one of the other items related to e-commerce that make it very complex. And to expand it a bit, for people that think that Brexit was the last change to the supply chain in Europe, well, it's rather for the start of changes, because going ahead, we will see a similar VAT reform in the EU on the 1st of July. We see another way to approach safety and security data with the import control system release 2. That kicks in on the 15th of March. So what we see is that customs tries to catch up with the realities of today, and unfortunately they are always a bit later than the reality demands.
No, absolutely. So again, as I touched on earlier, obviously you're one of a few partners we've worked with on similar projects, and you've taken it extremely seriously from day one, heavily invested. There was a lot of contingency planning that went in, that changed and had to be very agile along the way. What's your, I guess, because we've seen a spectrum of clients where, some of the guys we talked to didn't know or didn't have access to the information, and smaller businesses haven't got necessarily the resources to be able to plan or invest, right? So they sat on the fence assuming these things were going to just eventually it would become clear, or they'll be told exactly what to do. I guess one of the things we got panicked with some of our clients we were talking to last year is that you've got to make decisions, otherwise you will be left behind. I mean, what was UPS's approach from day one, pretty much? How was it envisioned? Why did you invest and take it as seriously as you did, I guess, is the question.
Well, because our business is moving goods seamlessly and frictionless from point A to point B, and in that customs is a major component, and that's a bit the story of my professional life. Customs always has been seen as a nuisance, but if you master your subject, you are able to add value to your customer. So while customs will never be seamless, if you have an experienced intermediary like UPS in between, for the end customer, it will be kind of a transparent experience, and that's why we also have invested so much into Brexit, preparing for these customs formalities.
And putting your money where your mouth is. Obviously, I know some of these answers, but we're over 2 months over into what we'll call proper Brexit now. What are some of the challenges where we're still facing, or UPS is facing? Now we're 2+ months in.
Well, basically, they are very diverse. I mean, we see that some of the customs IT systems are not doing what they are supposed to do. Without going into detail, because we know how challenging it can be with IT systems. We also see that in some customs offices, and I do not speak for UPS alone, I know this from the Express Association. Some of the customs offices are not really staffed up to process all this volume, because we've seen a tremendous amount of additional volume, and that needs to be processed by us, but also by customs. So that's been one of the biggest challenges. Then the knowledge of the public. I mean, let's take origin. People or some people think, okay, there's a trade agreement between the EU and the UK, so I do not have to pay import duties anymore. Well, that is true if you can prove and if you can claim the origin status. But as we have been talking about e-commerce, a lot of these products are being manufactured not in Europe anymore or the UK. So you have to pay import duties. And then we come into the next challenge. A customer then gets a shipment and he gets a bill. He gets a bill for import duties that he didn't expect. He has to pay VAT, and people are not aware that your VAT is calculated on the merchandise value, on the freight value, on the import duties that you pay, and there you apply in the UK your 20% to. So that has led to a lot of confusion with the public, and of course, I do understand that in a B2C relationship, you reach customers that maybe even do not know that they bought something online in Europe.
There's definitely been some horror stories in the UK that's made the mainstream media. Women buying £200 coats and being hit with £80 worth of duty on top of it, and then them just returning the goods because they weren't aware of what the charges were. So that must create an awful lot of challenges too, because someone has to pay the costs ultimately. That's when you're moving goods and you're shipping. So I guess on the data front, I mean, you've touched on a couple of things there. So you talked about government systems, for example, and obviously I've had some experience in the past with that, and they can be some of the challenges and some of the bottlenecks in keeping goods moving. But what are the things that we need to focus on next? What are the things that I guess need to change as far as, I guess, from your perspective, I suppose, technology or just supply process?
Well, I'm going to come back to the example that we were in with the lady with her coat that she ordered and then refused because she was not prepared to pay import duties. Well, the next thing is she wants to return that. And if there's one weak angle in current customs legislation, it are returns, because then for that coat you need to have an invoice. You need to export declare it. It needs to go back. You need to apply a return goods procedure. So it's very complex, and it makes the life of UPS difficult, but also the life of customs. It's just additionally it adds on to already that increased amount of goods. And if you know the reality of e-commerce, there's an impressive component of return goods. So that's something that we call on as UPS, but also in our business associations, both the UK and the EU, to sit together and to find simpler ways to move these goods, because that will make our lives easier, and also the life of our customers.
No, that's something we've definitely seen as well, Walter, as you say, the clients we work with, the e-commerce type businesses, as you say, they've got a piece, whereas when we were heading to a no-deal Brexit, the concern was what were the charges going to be for so you've got one misdeclaring of goods, the other side is if you don't do that matching process, right, where of the goods going out and then back in or vice versa, then in theory we thought you could be, if you don't match them, there'd be double duty charges. Obviously there's no duty now, but there's still a piece where those need to be matched. And that's a piece of work that all these businesses need to do. And then you've also got the misdeclaring of goods. So even if there aren't any duty charges on things, misdeclaring goods still leads to fines and penalties, right?
Yeah. Which brings us to a question I have to you, Richard.
Okay.
And that is about data. We know the importance of data. Without data, we are lost. But what are some of the items that you see that are significant and relevant?
I guess the big misunderstanding that people have had last year with some of the conversations I guess I've been involved in is GDPR. So people make the assumption that GDPR is an EU regulation. The reality is the UK changed its data protection law back in 2018 to GDPR. So that hasn't changed in any shape or form. So we still have to comply, and it is a good format to comply to. So again, one of the challenges I guess I have when talking to people, it's similar to what you were saying a minute ago with customs being something that people kind of grit their teeth of and know it's something they need to do. I guess good housekeeping on data is equally important, and similar to what you were saying about what's down the road. So if in broad strokes we talk about GDPR at the moment, really at the moment the only requirements put onto you by GDPR is that you understand all your data, you understand all your data processes, and you understand where all your data's stored. And a couple of years ago, I think that was challenging for quite a few businesses. I think most businesses within the UK anyway have made great inroads into understanding the need and necessity, but it was something they never had in their IT budget or in their business budget. It was a new line that had to be added in, so it took them a while to wrap their head around it. I guess the concern from my side is the GDPR will increase its security in where data is stored, particularly. There's going to be certain types of data that potentially do need to be held in certain regions moving forward for certain reasons, or you're going to work with certain clients that are going to have specific requirements that require data to be held in particular places. And I think that's something for smaller businesses they're going to find challenging if they haven't got a global network. So I guess to answer your question, really, an understanding, if people don't understand their data now, they need to, and they need to be aware that the type of restrictions and the requirements that clients are going to want or going to need to put on them are going to grow. Similar to what you were saying about the changes within EU.
Yeah, that's indeed the case. And what's also important in terms of technology is in the EU, the legal framework consists of the Union Customs Code, which was being started developing in 2010. It was adopted in 2013. Came into effect in 2016, and it should increase the capacity of customs to do risk assessment, to collect revenues. It should make things easier, and it came with a lot of technology, because one side of it, of that Union Customs Code, was the trade facilitation. One example is centralized import clearance, which means that today you still need to make a customs declaration in each member state of the EU, sometimes with different requirements. And we were promised, and it was in the Union Customs Code law, that by 2020 all IT systems would be in place to provide that functionality. Well, due to a lack of subsidies, of money, due to a lack of estimating the correct complexity of it, we are now talking about 2025 before that will be completed. So that's a life cycle of 15-20 years, and you know this better than me, Richard. In technology, then you're already outdated if you work with cycles like that.
We'll end on this question. So it's really about visibility, and I think it covers a lot of things we've touched on today. But in particular, I know you and I have spoken about this in the past. I like your view, or give everyone your slant, I guess, on blockchain technology and where you think this potentially applies in the future.
Yeah, blockchain technology, I think, is an opportunity. I don't know if it's the only opportunity, but it allows customs to access pieces of data without the actors then sharing their data between themselves. So that gives the customs the possibility to do their risk assessments and other assessments much prior into the life cycle of a shipment, and that's where we need to move to. What is also important is that we come together as the institutional stakeholders and all the big e-commerce players, the express carriers, and that we brainstorm about a new way of doing business that is compliant, but that's also fit for today's business realities. Because I gave the example of returns, there is still the impossibility to do a centralized import clearance. So there are a lot of opportunities, but we need to grab these opportunities now, or Europe will not be competitive in a couple of years from now.
I think that's a great place for us to leave off for today. I think you've made the message loud and clear on what we need to do, where we need to go. I would vote for you, Walter, for whatever it is you want to run for. So I guess from me, I want to thank everyone for attending, and hopefully you've learned something. Walter, do you have anything to add?
No, it's been a pleasure, and looking forward to our next conversation, videotaped or not.
Absolutely. Thank you. And everyone enjoy the rest of your sessions. Thank you.